Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. We are continuing on in our series of reviews for the Birthright setting, second AD&D. This is again our first part of the series where we're taking a look at the different nations that inhabit the southern coast of the former Annuirian Empire. So we've covered some of the good ones so far, or more good inclined, or if not neutral. Now we're going to go kind of we started basically on the eastern side, and we're kind of working our way west of the available country. So this is the further or westernmost country, or barony as it actually is, that is available for the players. And this is the Barony of Diemed, which, if you've been checking out our other videos, stretching back about 80 years, this used to be a much, much bigger barony, but three of the new and smaller nations that inhabit the southern coast now broke away from Diamed formerly, and so that's kind of one of the immediate adventure slash gaming campaign hooks that you have if you are trying to run this country, as you are trying to basically reclaim those former territories. So Diamed, as it says here, is lawful neutral. So we'll start as usual with breaking down some of the stats here and then the actual details of the country here. So it is one of the shorter entries. It never did really get a player's guidebook kind of thing, or player secrets rather, and as part of that series of releases to really flesh it out a little bit more, which is a little bit unfortunate because it's kind of a cool sort of antagonist to those other countries that we were looking at in the previous part of the series. But nonetheless, we'll try and fill in some of the things there. Anyway, so lawful neutral, it is available for players. It does have 6 provinces there, with varying levels of sort of advancement or civilization there. So we have Arel, which is level 4, which is pretty solid. Bliene or Bliene, 3, with a lot of magical potential still there. That's that second half of that fraction. Cilien and Moray are both very high level at 6 and 5 respectively, but really no magical potential left there, or wilderness. Duen is at 3/2, which is all right, and then Tier is at 2/3. So on the law side, you can see that it's not all exactly one way. You do have some influence that's kind of, or someone else that's kind of contesting a little bit of your influence and power. That is Darian Avan from Avenil, which we'll cover in another series, because that's considered part of the Heartlands, basically. But he is one of the sort of 2 main contenders in line for to reclaim the Iron Throne. So it's between him and Borruin, if I'm pronouncing that one right. But that's further down the series. So so he kind of keeps an eye on you, kind of keeps you in check. So you do have to be careful with trying to basically erode his influence a little bit if you want to firmer control over yours. But that is, part of the fun of trying to negotiate that. You are, if you play the existing NP or character here, sorry, I shouldn't say NPC, is Hyrule Diamed or Diamed, depending on how we want to, Diamed maybe. The pronunciation is a little bit rough sometimes with the things from Birthright. But anyway, so in Arel there, you have most of it. He just has like a limited holding of 0 level, basically. He's just kind of keeping an eye on the law there. You're the only law in Bliene. You have most of it in Cilien, although he has a level 2 there as well. So you basically have 2/3 of the law there. You control everything in Duen, and up to the max level there. Moray is a little bit open. You have 3 of the 5, and he has 1, and then you just have 1 in Tier, which you might decide to bump that up as soon as you can, just to prevent him from Darian Avan from maybe increasing his influence there. But that's, again, that part would be up to the DM and whatever else is going on in your campaign. On the religious side, it's largely dominated by what is called, I've just got to find it here in the box here. So just because there are so many different organizations, so there's so many acronyms to remember. But this is the Orthodox Imperial Temple of Halen, run by Lavalon Briasen, which is a little bit different, as we saw, to the Impregnable Heart of Halen, that dominates some of the other areas of the southern coast. And then you have 1 entry here of GK, which we need to find as well real quick for you guys. Oh, and that's interesting there. That might be a typo. Gilder Kalian of Endir, Heartland's Outfitters. So he should be actually on the guild side there. So I do believe that might be a issue there, because it doesn't make sense for that stat to be under the temple. So that is actually a typo. So right here in Cillian, the GK should actually be over here. So just keep that in mind, yeah, because Kalian has nothing to really do with the religion anywhere. And he is one of your neighbors to the north. So let's talk about the guild situation there, because you do have a fairly sizable country, so there's a lot of opportunity there, but there's also some fierce competition. So OT is Orthian Tane of the Southern Anywhere Shipping and Imports. Gilder Kalian is also the ruler of Endir, your smaller neighbor to the north, but that guy is almost like, if you think like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, as far as like he's got so many plots and schemes going. So while he might not be a military threat, he's got the DM could really play that up. So it's best to tread carefully with how you approach and try to remove his influence if that's a thing you are going to attempt. The other guilds here, let's see. El Hadid has got a little bit of influence here too. That's the Port of Call Exchange. Not too much though. He's just in Arel, and him and Orthian Tane kind of battling it out there. What else do we have? He's got a little bit more, in Blien and Cillian. He's actually, especially in Cillian, that's kind of a bigger competition between him and Gilder Kalian. OT is, Orthian Tane again. He's got basically the province of Dwen on lockdown. Kalian's got most of the influence in Moray, with Orthian Tane there as well, just a little bit. And then Kalian's got basically everything locked up in Tier as well. On the source side, it's basically one wizard kind of controlling everything there, and that is, probably butcher this, but Hermedhie. What magic there is in the province, he basically controls all of that. That being said, he doesn't quite have the maximum potential of Blien fully realized yet. But anyway, moving on. So your region itself, if you want to run him, or the existing Baron here, to sort of continue on the name of the country, obviously, is Hyrule Diamed or Diamed. He is a level 7 fighter, which is already pretty cool there. And major bloodline, he's lawful neutral, so he's not like an evil ruler in any way, shape, or form, and neither is the country, but he certainly feels that based on what happened 80 years ago with those other countries breaking away, he does feel that still rightfully belongs to him and his family. So he's largely focused on that, on the political arena. So he's a direct descendant of the founder of Diamed. So those who deal with this canny politician and cunning strategist realize most of his actions have a secret motivation or form part of a trick. Sometimes the Baron uses this reputation to his advantage by doing exactly what he claims, and nothing more. So for this reason, other regents fear engaging in diplomatic relations with him. They don't know what he intends, and they have few chances to find out before he's succeeded. So in that sense, he does play a very cunning political game too, but he's sort of a little bit more ambitious, I'd say, than his means currently, because again, that influence of Darien Avon to the immediate sort of north and west is kind of keeping some of that in check as well. Because if Avenel felt that this guy was being too much of a threat, he would probably intervene more directly for you. That being said, continuing on here, the Baron does seek perfect order in his kingdom and allows no lawbreaker to go unpunished. So basically, he's fair and even-handed in his justice, and that basically extends to everybody. So that's actually kind of an interesting approach there. So, whether they're commoner or even members of his family. So in that sense, that's not his justice is fair. He can't be accused of maybe some of the typical things you might throw towards criticisms of like the nobility or things like that, or rulers. So no, he's 100% even-handed in that. So He does have several lieutenants already, which is great in the sense that you can divvy up smaller tasks to some of these lieutenants, whereas some of the other nations we've reviewed either don't have a lieutenant or just one, or maybe they don't have a capable one yet. But he has at least 4 trusted lieutenants who constitute an extensive spy network in both his own and neighboring kingdoms. His secret sources allow him to quickly respond to internal threats and external pressures with hardly any inconvenience. And his daughter might be one of those spies that he has too, and she is a wizard there as well. Interesting that she is not listed as controlling any sources in the country, but that could be on purpose. So nonetheless, pretty cool situation there in the sense that you have several capable people that you can employ to further your schemes, or hopefully further that. You do have, as far as the country goes, again, your 6 provinces are fairly solidly developed, and even though it doesn't necessarily list it here, it would be fair to start you with a decent-sized starting army as well. So it's unfortunately that they don't mention like a starting treasury here either. That's why I said it's a little bit unfortunate that considering the role this country really plays in the southern coast, it really should have gotten like the full spread as far as description. So basically, you're strong enough to withstand basically anybody, certainly from the former territories that belong to you. Andir is not really going to be a military issue, and Avenel probably isn't going to doesn't really have any reason to necessarily outright attack you. He's got other things occupying him, fortunately, but you necessarily don't want to get on his bad side either. You maybe want to bring him more to your side and sympathetic towards your cause of reclaiming some of your former territories, although he might be a little bit more wary as you expand your physical territory as well. The main threat really that you're going to have to deal with, which everybody kind of has to deal with in the southern coast, which again we'll cover towards the end of this series, is the incursions of the spider from the Spiderfell, the sort of main and really only NPC non-human kingdom. I wouldn't say kingdom. Gosh, what am I saying? Territory that exists right sort of in the middle of the southern coast and right to your like immediate northeast. So that is just one of the ancient evils, sort of the big bad of the southern coast, and we'll talk about that more in detail there. But you basically, as long as you keep some troops in that area of your country, you should be fine with dealing with any potential incursions, unless the DM is kind of hell-bent on playing that up. So, moving on. Cillian on the Arnian Bay is the strongest province. It abuts Anweir City and controls all southern approaches to the imperial capital, which is something that you can use to your advantage in negotiations there. The Baron, as it says here, could cut off most of the trade routes to the city if he ever felt so inclined. So, if somebody, some of your neighbors potentially are pissing you off a little bit too much, you can always play that card a little bit too. Again, it would be also fair to start you with a decent navy, but we'll talk more about that when we talk about the naval expansion to the game. Moving on, so the important NPCs, as we've been kind of hinting at throughout this review, we have Darien Avan, Prince of nearby Avenel, has influence in several of your provinces, but he's not yet made any moves to turn them against you. So it could happen, but you do want to keep an eye on that and be aware of him making any moves to sort of control more law in your own country than you do, right? You want to certainly not let that happen. The Orthodox Imperial Temple of Halen maintains a strong presence in your nation, as represented by the priest Lavalon Briasen, just a level 5 priest there, but that person is lawful good, and he challenges the temple from Avenel, claiming that Darien Avan directly controls it. And then on the guild side, one guild or another has contested every open guild holding in each of your provinces, and the Baron plays each of them off the others, which is, I think, the smart approach there. And again, depending on what kind of campaign you're playing, where maybe some of your other fellow PCs are running some of these guilds, right? That's a great chance for role playing there, and to play them off each other as they maybe are currying for your favor. So, but that being said, again, Gilder Kalian of Endir is probably at least in some ways the most dangerous and most resourceful, just because he actually controls a country, albeit a small one, in addition to his just extensive guild holdings all across the southern coast and in the heartlands and stuff too. So definitely something for the DM who's running the campaign to certainly, there's a lot of pressure put on the DM to run a proper campaign like this, because you have to know all these different countries, the temple law situation, the guilds and sources and all that, and know who's scheming against who controls what, where, and how that all works. So you got a lot on your shoulders there to do that properly. But it can be so rewarding to watch that unfold and watch your PCs either cooperate and rule a country together in various ways, or scheme against each other and stuff like that. So it's just a blast. Anyway. So, continuing on, better that he reasons than let the guilds operate in every town. Some whisper that the Baron wants to lure Kalian of Endir into marriage with his daughter, the Lady Lassica, but to what end, no one knows. So that is an interesting one there. That might be just to keep Kalian from doing anything too crazy, or as a way to maybe have him turn some of his own schemes and other operations to bring that a little bit more in line with you, and maybe have Kalian in some way help destabilize some of your former territories to the east, so that might make it more easier for you to reclaim some of that land. So that could be like a little part of that. Country-wise, as far as just like the geography, so let's see, like its neighboring kingdoms, mostly rolling grasslands, but overall fairly beautiful. So the farmers, as it says here, keep their fields nearly perfect across the realm. Orchards in town are basically all well maintained, so nothing really like dilapidated or falling apart here. Again, kind of a reflection of the way he runs the country too. So the strong-willed citizens maintain a tight grip on their emotions, typically keeping to themselves. So they're not necessarily overly in love with you as the ruler, but they kind of really respect the office, the role of Baron. And basically, as long as you don't screw up, you won't really have any internal problems there, which is a good thing. So you don't have that headache to deal with on top of other things. But nonetheless, we got to be careful of the influence of Avenel again. And so that's something that you as the player need to be aware of. But depending on how much the DM wants to play that up, that's certainly something there. So, and then, you have one of your provinces is a little bit more mountainous, Blien, which is maybe a little bit less lawful, but again, a little bit less developed. And some adventuring hooks there. You got some things in the mountains, whether you got like brigand activity up there, mages trying to do who knows what. So that could be an interesting adventure hook if you did want to go adventuring within your own country, or again, if you're not playing the political sub game of Birthright and you just want to adventure in the country, that could lead to some interesting adventure hooks there if you happen to get yourself in the service of the Baron here. So overall thoughts on the country. Again, it's unfortunate that it didn't really give you details on like a starting treasury and army or anything like that, or even navy. I think those are all things that certainly you as the player and the DM should work out at the start of a campaign. There's no reason that you should be starting from like scratch, where other nearby neighbors have like more established stats in that sense. So overall, probably a fairly decently strong treasury, sizable army, although not overly huge. So I would certainly say less than Gore and Avenel, but I would say probably equal in Rosone to the size of Rosone's army, if not maybe just slightly bigger. But that's up to how you want to run that. Similar on the Navy side, but again, we'll talk about that when we hit the naval expansion. So big focuses that you should have is, again, keep playing the guilds off of each other. See what in what way you might convince the wizard there, Hermed Hiei, to provide some service to you if at all possible. The temple situation doesn't really seem to be all that big of a deal. But you certainly want to, I think, rule up the law in your country a little bit more without antagonizing Avenel, and kind of maybe sort of gradually pushing his influence out there, but sort of still keeping on his good side. Keep Avenel focused on his sort of contest against Boruin for the Iron Throne. You could play the long game on that until you've built up your territory and power a little bit more to where you can maybe be a little bit more openly challenging towards Avenel, but you have so many little things to deal with. You got to worry about Gilder Kalian in Endir to what his schemes are up to. Again, he's not really a military threat, but he is certainly a schemer, and I think we'll get to him soon in the next series. But I think he's considered evil, lawful evil. I think, or some form of evil at least. in the description, but we'll get to that down the road. Depending on what your DM has planned, you got to be wary of the Spiderfell. It would be an impressive feat to be able to stamp that out once and for all, but that would certainly require major expenditure of resources and things like that, and would probably even require the aid of some nearby countries. So since that territory has been there for centuries and centuries in the backstory here. So overall, you just want to rule up a little bit, basically increase your holdings, make sure you got a steady income, regency, and things like that. And then I would I think your I would say short-term, medium goal should really be, if you really do want to reclaim your former territories, how are you going to go about that? And that might require some political dealings, some treaties, alliances. You might work things on the economic side with, again, Gilder Kalian, as they kind of mentioned that hook there, potentially marrying off your daughter to him to maybe help you on that front. But again, how much can you trust him? So there's lots of little things to think about there. But depending on how much you rule up or build up your army as well, Medoir and Ilian really shouldn't present much of a challenge as far as military conquest goes, but Rosown would probably come to their defense, and then you'd have to deal with that. So you might not want to take on 3 nations at once, and Ilian is pretty well defended, even though they're not a large territory with that level 7 castle. So you got plenty of things to chew on there, but overall, if you can get to the point where you've reclaimed all of your former territory and not really come into conflict with your other neighbors, you could certainly transform yourself into a powerhouse in the long term, and then that could lead you maybe towards actually making a claim for the Iron Throne. Anyway, we're going on a little bit long here for this review, but anyway, let us know what you guys think. Have you played with Diamed or against them in a campaign? Have you adventured there? What are your thoughts on this type of country? Again, it's unfortunate that there isn't more description for them, but that leaves a little bit more up to you and your DM and your group on maybe what starting values should be for treasury and stuff like that. So hit us up in the comments, guys. Let us know what you think. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel again, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.